Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I just want to recap my trip of the weekend before last. I went to Brunswick, Maine to be part of the Kemp Symposium as one of the invited speakers. And so this was put together by Professor Patrick Rail. He is a professor at Bowdoin. He's both a historian and an enthusiast for games. And so he's actually been on my podcast. He's engaged with several board gamers in that kind of crossover space between hobby and academia. And so he put this together. It was great because I actually got a chance to meet him in person, which really was actually wonderful because I have known him for years, and getting to actually meet him was phenomenal. So the way the weekend worked was that we had 4 invited speakers. So we had Jason Perez, who was the keynote. There was Cole Worley, John Truitt, who is a professor at Central Michigan University, and he's the director of the Center for Learning Through Games and Simulations. So he and I are good friends. It was wonderful to see him. And then, of course, there was me. So on Friday night, we had a keynote from Jason, who talked about how history and games collide, sometimes catastrophically. Jason's overall point, I think, was that the historical sector of gaming is showing a lot of growth, but he would like to see more respect for history show up in mainstream historical games or games with historical themes. So that was an interesting starter for the weekend. Then on Saturday, we basically had 2 concurrent sessions where the speakers were teaching games. So in the morning, John Truitt was teaching games about Mexico and its history. I was teaching games about Rome and its history. So I taught Pandemic Fall of Rome. I got to play Hadrian's Wall. And I was playing these things with professors and with graduate students. And it was really a cool experience, actually, to bring those 2 parts of my life together in this particular way, which I'll talk more about. And then in the afternoon, there was a session where Cole and Jason were playing games with people. So Jason wanted to have games that showed off Indigenous history and how it's represented in mainstream games. And then Cole, of course, talked about imperialism in games. He brought John Company, and there was a lot of excitement over a very current prototype of Molly House. And then on Sunday, we got together again, and we just had like some very relaxed discussion about the games, what people had seen, what they'd been asked to do as part of the games, what that might mean. And it was just really a cool weekend. So the weekend was partially cool just because of the people I got to meet and hang out with and the games I got to play. So I mentioned I got to play Pandemic Fall of Rome and I got to play Hadrian's Wall, but I got to do that with professors who were really, really nice and really, really cool. I got to meet Mike Nerdall in person. He's been on the podcast previously. It was a real delight to actually get to spend time with him and play a game with him. And I got to spend time with some other, fave board game academics. So Patrick Rail, obviously, since he put it together. Maurice Suckling was in town from RPI. It was wonderful to see him. And I also met some new people who had not, it seemed, made some of that same connection between gaming and history just yet. And actually, that is what I found the very most exciting. So one thing I really liked about what Patrick Rail did with this particular weekend with the symposium was that he kind of brought board games into an academic space and indicated they should be treated seriously, which is something that obviously I believe in. If you listen to my podcast, you know that is a particular interest for me. And that's something that I've been seeing happen with video games in the past few years. So several of my recent guests have been classicists who do what's called archaeogaming, where they talk about how the ancient world is presented in modern games, how are women presented in games that have ancient settings. How do we understand ourselves and our history through these games? And so for video games, that's common. It's increasingly common. There have been several edited volumes about that coming out in recent years, and it's been really a cool thing to see. However, that is not the case with board games, and I would personally like to see a lot more of that. I think that there's so much work to be done with board games that's very, very interesting. Actually, I should mention another person I was super happy to see was Paul Wright, who is absolutely a delight. He is a former university teacher who is now teaching at a high school in the year coming up, and I know he's going to be amazing. He's one of the best game teachers I know, and he's my co-designer on a game about Machiavelli that I talk about on this channel occasionally. But he brought Republic of Rome, and you could really see like the people who played it had their wheels turning after they had, and it was really cool to see people who are interested in classics in an academic way engage with these games and think about what that could do for them in terms of talking about reception, in terms of conceptualizing what they know. And so I really hope to see more work like this happen in the future. I was really, really hopeful after some of the discussions this weekend that, board gaming will kind of join video games and take its place in academia the way that I feel that it should, as something that should be taken seriously and discussed seriously, as well as played for lots of fun. But I will also say probably my true highlight of the weekend was a late Saturday night game of Prime Minister that I played with Cole Worley, Paul Wright, who was teaching, Maurice Seckling, and of course I was there. And so Prime Minister is from GMT. It's a mean little game about, political power and the trade-offs that you have to decide on to get there. But we played an absolutely brutal game of Prime Minister, and I was just happy because I actually won something for once. I basically don't ever win games, and I'm okay with that largely. But I won this game of Prime Minister. So basically, you start as, even though you're like liberal, conservative, party leader, backbencher, you're all kind of like allied together at the start of the game. So you have to decide when you're going to break off. So, we went together for a while. It was a testy alliance, and then the conservatives broke off from Maurice and me, who were the liberals. And then, as the liberals were clearly kind of reaching the end of the track, Maurice had to choose his point to stab me in the back so that he could attempt to win the game. But fortunately for me, I crawled bleeding across the finish line and succeeded. But if you want to play a nasty little political game that really simulates that well, I actually think Prime Minister is it. It's very easy to play mechanically. It's hard to decide what to do socially, and there's enough game in there to make it the right mix between gaming the game and gaming each other. So I really recommend that one. But that was the Kemp Symposium. I had a wonderful weekend. It really filled my cup intellectually and in terms of gameplay time, and I really appreciated it. So thanks very much to Bowden and to Patrick Rail for putting it together, for hosting us, and for offering a really exciting weekend that is hopefully kind of an early version of many future such weekends to come. I'd really like to see board games as a topic of academic discussion more often, because I feel like we started in a cool place, and we've got so many places that we could still go. So that was the Kemp Symposium. Hopefully this update was fun for y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and most of all, happy gaming.